Good morning and welcome to your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts. And as always, I'm glad you're spending a bit of your day with me. This podcast is dedicated to conversations with entrepreneurs, business leaders, and innovators who are building meaningful work, solving real problems, and sharing the lessons that they've learned along the way. And my goal is simple. I want every episode to leave you with ideas that you can actually use in your business and your life. And my guest today is someone who has, I think, accidentally, quietly shaped this show from behind the scenes for a very long time. We're not sure when we met. I started this podcast around 2008. Tess started her business around 2013. But Tess Woods is the founder of Tess Woods PR. And she has been sending me an extraordinary stream of authors and thought leaders for a long time. Her eye for fit and her respect for podcast hosts are a big reason your Partner in Success Radio became known as an author's podcast. She's a marketing MBA and an entrepreneurial leader with 3 decades of experience in media strategy, branding, and hands-on campaign development. And she's helped clients land coverage everywhere from the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, to CNBC and Harvard Business Review, and your Partner in Success Radio. So before we jump into today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor. This episode of Your Partner in Success Radio is sponsored by Cynthia K. She is the founder of Cynthia K Biz LLC, and she's also known as CK. She is an author, a speaker, a communications expert, and a national advocate for small businesses. So with more than 35 years of experience building and leading her own company, she helps entrepreneurs and business leaders strengthen how they communicate, make smarter business decisions, and position their companies for growth. So if you're building a business, leading a team, or looking for practical guidance on communicating your message more effectively, you'll want to learn more about Cynthia, or as I call her, CK, and the resources she offers. You can find her online at cynthiakbiz.com. Tess, welcome to the show. As you already know, I'm a voracious reader. I think you figured that out many, many years
Thank you for
ago.
having me. Yes.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Listen, I'll read just about anything. I think you know this, including the back of a cereal box, if that's all in front of me. I don't eat cereal, so that's always a little tricky. But looking around my office at the enormous number, and I mean enormous, I've got 3 overflowing bookshelves. I don't have wall room for a 4th one. I've got a basket full of books. And I can honestly say that I have you to thank for introducing me to quite a few of them.
Oh, that's my pleasure. They're wonderful people and good messages, and I'm so thankful that we've connected and that they can get their messages out there.
Well, they can. And one thing about you, you know who I am, and we've
Mhm.
established a relationship very early on.
Yep.
And you never, ever, not once in all the years we've been connected, sent me a guest, request that I would say, no.
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't
It's
know
never,
that.
yeah, it's never happened.
The
In fact,
rejections in this business, we just kind of forget them. So it's glad to know that
oh,
there wasn't any
oh,
from you.
no, and I think I told you and CJ, because I work with him in your office
Mhm.
quite a bit. My attitude is you already know what to do. I don't even have to give you the, here, go do this. Go.
Right,
I
right.
just say, yep, and he goes and does it.
Yep. It's a great relationship.
It is. So tell us about you.
Well, I hate this part. Denise, you're really making me out of my comfort zone. I'm behind the scenes kind of person.
Me too.
Uh, so I always neglect these sorts of self-promotion or talking about me because my job is to talk about my clients. And I've been doing that for over 30 years, even though I pretend I'm 26 still. Um, but yeah, I mean, I sort of fell into the business book arena, which is where the bulk of my work is over the past decades. But it's really become a nice niche for me and my clients and meeting people like you.
Let me ask you this, and we were
Hmm.
talking about this in the green room. Didn't you introduce me years ago to our sponsor, CK?
CK and I have worked together off and on for years as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've got her book in front of me, Small Business, Big Success.
Yes, and she's someone I consider a friend and a mentor in different ways as well. And just having these relationships, when it comes to PR, oftentimes, it may not be a steady relationship month after month, year after year, but it's something that we pick up where we leave off when we have something worth sharing, right? So CK and I have been off and on in a good way, not a bad, toxic way, for years. So I loved hearing that was your sponsor. She's wonderful.
And, I have to tell you that was an accident
I
because I
know.
have a list of sponsors, and I went, "Hang on a second, I want CK, I'm Cynthia
Yeah.
K," and when you mentioned that you knew her, I went, "Oh, that figures. That tracks."
Yep. Yep.
So thank you. But you have been in this industry for quite a while.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how
Yeah.
have publishing and media I know this is gonna be one of
Oh,
those
yeah. I know
questions
what
that
you're
we're like,
about to say. Yeah.
how has it changed since you started?
How hasn't it changed?
There you
Well,
go.
obviously, we're talking about ebooks and audiobooks and self-publishing and hybrid publishing and all of those fun things from the publishing side. And then obviously in the media side, a lot more user-generated content, um, shrinking newsrooms, shrinking pages for book reviews. So all of those have kept us thinking of new ways to get the message out there. But the bottom line from where I come from is that no matter which way you're publishing or which way you're entering a media space, you still need to get the public to hear about your thoughts in your book if you want it to become anything. Many people have different reasons for writing books, especially in the business realm. But whether it's legacy or book sales or new clients or increased speaking fees, all of those things don't happen unless people out there know that it's there.
That's true, and I was telling you that CK and I are both writing books for
Hmm.
the Closer series, which is
Yep.
Ben Gay the third. He was the
Hmm.
final mentee of Dr. Napoleon Hill.
Right.
But what I found is working with you
Hmm.
and working with so many other people that if you don't have a podcast, I'm just gonna put in a plug for
Right.
podcasting, and you figured this out, I think, very, very early on because that's how you
Hmm.
get your voice heard.
Yes.
A podcast is forever. It's not
Hmm.
a week-long Facebook ad. It's
Absolutely. It's a great marketing tool for anyone. I mean, they don't even have to be an author, obviously, but that helps. Any business, it's a great additional, feather in your quill to get your word out there.
it is. And,
Mhm.
what do you find that, once people are on podcasts or they're finding innovative it used
Mhm.
to be innovative when you and I started this,
Mhm.
ways of getting heard? Because to me, getting your voice heard is so important.
Yeah, I think people sometimes get a little bit too skewed into I only want the number one podcast and NPR and this and that. And you have to really look at who your audience is in your niche. I mean, no poo-pooing NPR. Obviously, they're, top notch for a reason. But that's not the right place for everybody. And of course, we'll try them. And if we can't find them right off the bat or make a connection, there's lots of other places. Um, I had authors years ago who would complain, oh, this radio station's too small, or I haven't heard of them. But if it's the right audience and it's the right fit, and it's worth doing because you don't know who's listening and you don't know where it's going to lead. And the power of the internet, you share this on social media and anyone can come up and find it. We had an author way back when Oprah still had her regular daily show, landed on Oprah because someone heard her on a small radio station in Seattle and was like, oh, this is perfect for Oprah. And I'm one of her producers. So, as long as you're in the right niche, I think podcasting is an ideal way to reach your audience.
Listen, I agree with you. Obviously, I'm going to agree with you, but this has been proven to me for decades now. Well,
Mhm.
almost 2 decades, 18 years.
Mhm.
But it just and you're right. I mean, I've had people I'll tell you a quick story years
Mhm.
ago, many, many years ago, probably around 2008, 2009. I
Mhm.
got an email that, because I'm easy to find if you know how to find me on the podcast. And this really nice man from England sent me this lovely message. He said, I bought a new car in the UK. And
Mhm.
at that time, nobody really knew what a podcast was. I barely knew what one,
Right, right,
but I was doing it anyways.
right.
But he said, and I'll have to paraphrase, but he said, I had bought this car and I was, they had a new dashboard on it, which again, back then, everything was different. And
Right.
he saw a button on his radio section that said podcast. Well, what's a podcast? And he landed on me somehow, and we've been
Wow.
friends ever since.
Oh, and that's another part of just being on a podcast or having a podcast. It's not just about, this 20 minutes we're going to spend together, Denise, but it's the relationship behind it. And I've put, guests on podcasts for years, and those that just do it and go on to the next, that's fine. That's their prerogative. But then there's others who really take the time to make a relationship with you or another host, and that helps grow their business. I've had clients come and say, 4 different podcasts that I did because of you, they're now part of my network of most trusted, sales retrievals or what have you, and it's really what you put into it too. It's an introduction to a new person, to a new audience, to a new space.
It very much is. And, I like what you said about, we become friends, partners.
Hmm.
I've said this so many years. My guests, especially the ones who are authors, because I have their
Hmm.
books in front of me, they sign
Hmm.
them, I'm all excited. But they become my mentors in so
Hmm.
many ways,
Yeah.
and
Well,
that's long
especially
term.
especially the authors that you and I work with together. I mean, they're all thought leaders in their own spaces. They're worthy, and they have such great insights to share with us in every different realm of business.
They really do. And, and I have to go back to what you said about people want to be on NPR,
Hmm.
they want to be selective.
Hmm.
That's a bad idea. You
Yeah.
explained it beautifully. It's a very bad idea. You
Hmm.
don't know who's going to hear this today
Right.
and when they're going to hear it, maybe tomorrow, maybe 5 years from now, it doesn't
Hmm.
matter.
Yeah.
So, don't get fussy.
Yeah.
Just
Exactly.
don't get too fussy.
Right. If you have the time, take the 15 minutes and do the interview.
Right, right. And mine is an hour long, so I get to
Right.
talk with you guys for a long time and really dive
You
in.
really can get into it.
I
Yeah.
can. Why you do what you do, who you help, you know,
Hmm.
what kind of work you do. So let's go back to that. So many authors are trying to establish themselves as recognized voices in their field.
Hmm.
Uh, and this is going to be probably an 8-part question.
Okay.
What does it actually take to build that kind of visibility outside of being a podcast guest?
Oh, lots of things. Well, a lot of my clients, as you know, are authors, and the book is a great resource to doing that. It's a calling card. It's a physical reminder of who you are, and it puts all of your thoughts, which is what, most of us in the entrepreneurial space are, and we don't have physical products, we have services. And in those cases, the book becomes our physical product, which is just a vessel for all of the thought leaders. So, when I say that a book has 300 pages, that's 300 ideas. Um, y- and that in itself is a great first step. But then, I always say it's kind of writing a book is like having a baby. Once it's done, your job's just starting. That baby's now in the world. You got 18 years at least in front of you. So now you got to raise that baby and get the book out there and use it in your business and in your sales and make sure that people are seeing it on social media, on media, in your everyday life. Never leave home without a copy. All of those sorts of things.
And, I've only once in all the years I've been doing this podcast did I have somebody come back to me and say, "Nobody bought anything from me."
Mm,
Uh, and I wanted to say I didn't say it, but I wanted to say, "I'm
hmm.
not your billboard."
Right.
That's your job.
Right.
I mean, I will do what I can to promote it, and I always do.
Exactly. And just because you get that NPR or what have you doesn't mean you sell a book.
No.
The ROI on PR and business books is very hard to measure because really when I first meet with a business author, I ask what their goals are. And if their goals are really, ROI on book sales, then we have to have a different conversation because in order to do that, you're going to have to sell thousands and thousands of books in a very crowded world. And really what you have to think of it as is, like I said, that calling card, whether it's going to be the next client, a bigger speaking fee, or, a launch of something you're doing on your own. I've worked with many consultants who have left, the big 6 or 4 or however many there are now and launched on their own. And it starts with a book and with their name and all of that. So you got to do all those things.
It's the best, calling card, the best business
Hmm.
card you can hand out.
Right. It's your legacy.
That's exactly right. So for people listening who have considered writing a business book,
Hmm.
where would you get them to start? What advice would you give them before they even start writing? I think one of them, and I'm picking this up out of the ether or something you
Mhm.
said, but get your get straight on what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it.
Exactly. What is the message you wanna put out there and why? You know, if you're just doing like I said, if you're doing it to try to make money, find something else to do. But if you're really trying to most of the people are trying to educate or share their knowledge with the next generation or with those who can't afford their consulting or their legal fees or what have you. And so this is a primer to kinda get into the beginning of what they're telling you. And, really, most business books are in order to, educate, inform, and entertain. So, and to put it all together like that, then that raises your profile too.
So you have to be very clear on why you're writing the book.
Yeah, yeah.
If you
Well,
think you're going to get rich selling books, that's probably not the best place to go.
yeah, not one and done. A lot of authors, don't have a whole shelf in them to write more than one. In the business space, that is. And then those who do, they can start to get rich, but it's going to take more than one.
Well, aren't they act and this is how I view these books. I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
around, I've got you ought to s I don't even wanna take pictures of it right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've been sorting through them, and I've got stacks on the floor, I've
Right,
got
right.
stacks in a basket. I
Yep.
I've made a mess, but you know what I do? I sit down, I did it this weekend because I was sorting through, the top
Mm-hmm.
3 that in the bookcase closest to me,
Mm-hmm.
those are the books I go to all the time.
Right.
So, there's that, but then I felt like a hoarder, I sat down, I had to look at everything. I had to read everything. "Oh, I can't give
Touch
this one
everything.
away." Yeah. So and then, of course, I never got through sorting them because I was too busy reading them and, rearranging sticky notes and go, "Ooh, I can, write about this one." So
Mhm. Oh, they're inspiring you, that's
they
great.
are, but you know what they are? They're also wisdom. I mean, they're
Mhm.
absolutely full of wisdom for people
Right.
like me. And it's hard for me I'm sorry, my cat is screaming at the door. That's his name is hashtag Hamilton is an ass. And I shut the door on him, and he's very unhappy. Sorry. Okay, so let's get back to what we were talking about.
Okay.
So when you're talking with people,
Mhm.
what can they expect from you? First of all, I think you start with what do you want? Where do you
Yeah.
wanna go?
What are your
How are you
goals?
going to
Right. Right.
exactly. But
Right.
then what do you give them?
I talk about the fact that this isn't you're not just hiring a PR person, you're hiring a partner. We can't I can't do it without them, right? It's their thought leadership, not mine. One of the best things about a book is I can read the book and then I get to know their thought leadership, but then there's so much that isn't in the book as well. So it's not a hire Tess and walk away. It's a hire Tess and work with Tess on how to get that message out, whether that's in the form of guest articles or we come up with some suggested interview questions to help podcast hosts and things like that. Um, those unlike you who don't always read the book, which no offense, everyone's busy. But if I can help them get the interview started without having to read 300 pages, that's my job. You Let me help you out. So, to be ready to not just walk away and to get in and think of ways to help promote it, whether that's in the form of, I come up with different headlines when I pick up a book. And then I tell them to the author and say, these are the headlines that resonated with me. What do you think? And how about we use those as pitches? So really it's a togetherness that I want to tell them that in order to get the most out of you and your message, we have to work together.
Do you help write books or do you publish them? What exactly does your
I
co
I really focus on the finished book or those trying to build a platform before the book. I really try to focus on getting, authors into the media space, podcast space to get them, more recognized out there in their individual fields. Sometimes people come to me before the book is written and obviously, we've been talking about how we've been doing this a long time. I have a whole slew of marketing experts that I work with who are independent or part of bigger firms, as well as hybrid publishers and traditional publishers and agents. So, all of these different pieces that come with writing and publishing a book, we're all connected in a certain way. And so, while my expertise is in the media and that part, I do have connections to the others. I can get involved early, I can introduce people. I can put people together and then I come in when it's time or vice versa. So that it's really, there's more than just, you can't just write a book and say, I'm going to get some media. That's not the only thing that makes the book move.
No, it's not. Let's go back to your very beginning. How
Hmm.
did you get into this business in the first because I know you worked with somebody else and you
Yeah.
wandered off on your own and you did
Yeah.
an amazing job.
No, I was an English major in college, and of course everyone jokes that, so what are you gonna do with that? Work the drive-through, and do you want fries with that is all you're gonna know how to say.
Ouch.
And yeah, I mean, there was a stand-up. I went to Disney World with my family, and that's what the stand-up guy like, "Well, who are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm in college, an English major." And they made the whole joke about, the drive-through. So I've always loved reading, obviously. I've always loved writing. I was always involved in the newspapers at my schools, at my college. I did internships at magazines, and all of those were on the editorial side. Um, so writing has always been a passion and media. And so I tried to figure out how to combine the two because I didn't think anyone would pay me to write creatively, or maybe I just didn't have the thick skin to try it. But so I launched into publishing. I was like, let me get a career in publishing. I moved to New York. I didn't know anyone. Um, and they all wanted me in editorial, and I kind of wanted to move over to the marketing side for the simple fact that you make more money on the business side of it. And no one would put me there because they liked my writing. So I finally accepted a job as an editorial assistant at a legal tax publisher. So not exactly thrilling. And I got my MBA so that I could switch over to the marketing side and no one would bug me about it.
Well, that
Then
makes sense.
yeah, and
It
then I
really
realized how
does.
unique it was, at least at that time in the publishing world, to have an MBA. It wasn't something that was part of that culture like it is in finance and consulting and those sorts of things. So I was able then, taking these business classes, I really started to like the content. So I was like, okay, business books became the natural fit. And I understood who their targets were, which was, either someone climbing the corporate ladder, trying to figure out what they want to do, or navigating internal politics, or, the higher you get, then knowing how to talk with the C suite, knowing how the C suite needs to present themselves as well to get recognized. So it really was more than just, learning about business, but really taking on the persona of my clients and their audience.
And I wanted to go back just a little bit further because you had mentioned at one point that you did your MBA classes at night. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
How did that change how you saw books as business platforms and not just stories?
Well, it was interesting, I mean, I'm dating myself a little bit, but I was getting my MBA before it was all that popular. Um, and I was living in New York City working in publishing, and it was hard to find MBA programs that were part-time. There was only, I think, one or two at the time, and everyone wanted you to be full-time. And I said, well, how can I leave the work world for 2 years and still know how it works? So I never really considered going full-time because I didn't quite comprehend how missing out on the real life experiences wouldn't translate if I came out 2 years later. So I really enjoyed being able to put what I was learning into what I was doing during the day. And my favorite class that I took was sadly my last my last semester, and it was the marketing of services. And I remember, we were supposed to use our jobs and give this presentation about how we market an intangible product. Well, I worked in publishing. I have a tangible product. So I think that presentation is really the beginning of Tess Woods PR because that was when I really stopped and took a big step back and was like, this isn't a product. It's a person and their thought leadership. Because the first thing I always do, even back then, flip over that book and read about the author because that's what it is. It's not a product. And so I talked about how basically market their thought leadership back before thought leadership was even a buzzword. And it was really so beneficial to step back and look at it like that. And oh, that professor loved everything about it. So that of course made me happy. But then it really just helped me understand what I was doing more than anything. And that's when people come and talk about, their books of fiction. I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. Sorry. I'm like, I'll read it, but I can't promote it. I don't know how to do that.
I'm the same way. I mean, I will read fiction,
Oh,
but it
I read
has to
fiction for
be
fun. Yep.
historic and it has to
Yes.
be British,
Yeah. Oh, I
just so
love the
you
Brits.
know.
Yes.
Me too. Yeah, but
Yeah.
give me good business books. And I wanted to talk with you too about Audible because that I
Hmm.
think is a very good way for people who have, and I'll ask them during the pre-interview, do you have
Yeah.
an Audible as well?
Hmm.
Because I'll be honest with you, Tess, I read books 3 different ways. You know, when
Right.
lands here, I read it well, I read the book 2.5 to 3 times, literally, and I
Hmm.
read them, I actually read them, but I'll do the page flip like, "Ooh, what's in here?" And I'll sticky note it, I will not mark
Yep.
the book ever, and then, about a month before I'm going to have you on the show, you're already scheduled,
Right.
I will sit down and read it again because at that point, I'm reviewing it. It's going to Amazon, it's going to
Right.
blog, it's going to
Great.
then the weekend before, I sit down with it again, and I really read it that time because it's going to be in front of me while we're
Right.
talking, and I need to understand it. And you touched on something so important a little bit ago. I actually wrote an article about this on LinkedIn, and, basically what I'm saying, if you're if you're a podcast host and you ask for the book, read the book.
Hmm.
What I didn't say was read the damn book, but it was implied. Yeah. If you're just not going to give them the respect, don't
Right.
ask for the book. But and I some of these I'm looking around, I've read so many of these so many times, and they're fat because they got sticky notes all over them, but I can open them up and go, "Oh, that's what I was looking for. There it is."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the power of books.
Yep.
But being able so I was going to go back and say, I read it, I will go get a Kindle version if it's available,
Hmm.
and then I will go get the Audible.
Right.
So I'm reading it sometimes all 3 at once in one
Well,
day.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I was on a call with a publisher recently who said that audiobooks are skyrocketing right now, and that seems to be the most, you know, looked to or the highest selling of most of the business genre now is the audio format.
That makes sense. Are you
Hmm.
finding, or is this even a question right now?
Hmm.
If I know somebody, I want to hear the book in their voice. That's
I
all
think
there is
that all
to it.
depends on the author and their comfortableness, is that
Uh,
word, their
yeah.
comfort level. I know fiction and things like that tend to go for, the splashy, famous folks, Tom Hanks or what.
Mhm.
But I do think that it's nice to hear the author's voice so that I mean, it's their words.
Exactly.
And especially if they've got that British accent.
There is that. So what is the number one misconception authors have about PR when they're building specifically their speaker or consulting brand? Not
Um,
necessarily about books, but
I
their
don't know.
their
Sometimes,
brand.
yeah, sometimes I'm not sure if they don't understand how hard it is to do this job. And not to say that not every message is important, but there is a lot of competition among their peers, but then also among everything else going on in the world, and how that affects the business people. So it's not just about I'm a consultant about mergers and acquisitions, and there's 80,000 others of me out there, but also that then there's all these other things going on in the business press, and we're all fighting for the same space and the same attention. So
Right.
really to be able to try to differentiate your message or your background or your take on something. And that's why I say, those NPRs and things, yes, they're great. They're super competitive. So to really find a place, that you might be, the star voice in just your niche is even better.
You know what people really want to know? And
What?
I say this to my web development clients, I say it to podcasters.
Hmm.
What's in it for them? We just
Right.
wanna know what's in it for us. Be
Mhm.
very clear. Why should we listen to you? Why should we
Right.
read you?
To
Let us
educate,
know.
inform, and entertain.
Exactly. That's
Hmm.
exactly right. So if you're just kinda bland about it, you've already just got a big check mark again, big X
Right.
in front of you. It's
And to
not
go
gonna
with the
work.
flow too. I know that there's some author, AI is so big right now and oh ho hum, but everyone's trying to fit into how can I talk about AI too? It's like, well, if you don't want to, then don't.
Right.
If that's not your direct thesis, don't worry about it. That doesn't mean we're part of that conversation. There's a million other people trying to be part of that conversation who should be. So don't try to put a square hole in a round peg or whatever. I think I just messed that up, but you know what I mean.
I understood it. I really did. So Walk us through a campaign where media coverage directly unlocked a client's big break. I know you've had some.
Well, some of them, it's very hard to pinpoint one particular hit. I had a client years ago who, he was interviewed, he was featured in Fast Company, he and his work, and I know that that turned into um, a long-term relationship with the New York Police Department as a crisis communications manager for them, someone they call when there's a crisis, and God knows there's lots of those in the New York PD. Um, I know other people who, again, who have said, I use these connections you gave me, and now I have my own podcast. I started my own publishing company, helping others do this. And then when it's time to get the word out, they're going to call you. And it's really just ignited a fire in a different industry for some people in that respect. So things like that are wonderful. Like the author was heard on, the Spokane, Washington radio station and ended up on Oprah's couch. All of those are just fun anecdotes. But it's not just the media that makes it well known. They have to have the goods behind it, right?
They do. And
Mhm.
let's go back to, and you mentioned earlier that you will often, or probably almost always, basically lay out what the podcaster needs to know. You don't do that
Mhm.
with me. You haven't ever had to do that with me because I do read the books. And so, I'm glad to, you don't have to go that extra step with me. But how do you spot a podcast ready thought leader before their book even launches?
Yeah, I'm not very good at that, to be completely
Uh,
honest. They find me a lot more than I find them. So I've been very lucky in that sense. And then too, I have such a nice network, like I mentioned, of agents and marketers and editors and writers that, having my niche, just like they have theirs, is a way to say, I think this is someone that would be good for you to work with. So all of those sorts of ways.
we all do that. If we're
Yeah.
conducting our business properly, if something is
Hmm.
not going to work for us, we're
Right.
happy to share. I
Absolutely.
mean, I'm constantly saying, "I'm not your person. I don't think I can do the work you need,
Exactly, just
but
like I
I
said about
know."
fiction or
Right.
poetry. I've got a network. I can find you the
Exactly.
folks.
I'll find you somebody.
It's
That's
just not
exactly
me.
right. Yeah, I do the same thing all the time. And I'm constantly referring podcast guests to other, podcast hosts that I know
Well,
that I can trust. I'm like, "Ooh,
and
you were
that's
great
another
on
thing
mine."
people don't realize about podcasts is that there is a sharing and there is a reciprocity out there. And it's really to everyone's benefits as opposed to territorial and exclusive and it's a nice network that you have, that I have, that authors can create from the introductions we make.
That's really true. So years ago, you started through Pearson and Riley, is that
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then you spent a decade at a Boston PR firm, and then
Mhm.
you launched Tess Woods, and then you
Yep.
found me, so here we are.
Yes. Yes. And now I get to choose who I work with instead of being told who to work with, and
Right.
and that's one of the main reasons I did it, to really focus on that business niche. When I was, in-house, I was still business at Wiley and Pearson Prentice Hall. That was all business. But then at the PR firm, obviously, it's more than just business. It's nonfiction. There was parenting, there was politics. And I just found that I continued to gravitate. I had the best successes with the business space. So being able to just say, no, that's what I do now. And like I said, I'll introduce you to someone else. But that's who I get to do now because I'm the boss.
Me too.
I don't know if
Well,
I could ever go back to having a boss. I
oh,
mean,
I'm
every client
unemployable.
is a boss. Let's
Yeah,
make sure everyone knows that, But
I am
yeah,
absolutely unemployable. That's
yes.
3 syllables, unemployable. 4 syllables. Yeah,
I think it's
I
more
mean it. Yeah, 4.
will not be an English teacher.
No, I speak Southern English. We do
There you go.
gonna say whatever we wanna say. But at Pearson and Wiley, I wanna go back to them. You
Mhm.
managed massive book campaigns, and you referenced that a bit. But what, in your opinion, is the single biggest mistake that new authors make in their platform building, then and now? Because I know things have changed.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what I've been saying is just sitting back and thinking that they're done once the book is written, and
Mm,
then it's long and exhausting. It's a very anxious time before the book comes out, but then you really need to be part of that promotion, whether it's old school fiction and going from bookstore to bookstore and signing stock, and speaking to small audiences. And again, that's the fiction world that I talk about, business books. We don't do that anymore. I mean, back in the day they did. But really to make sure that you're using your network, your thoughts, your extensions of yourself, your clients, all of those people that you have, as well as then the people that you're hiring for their expertise, the marketers, the publicists, and the sales and the speakers bureaus, all of those things. I mean, it's a lot of folks working together to give you the success. And it's not just, I've done my book and I'm going to hire you and walk away.
Right. And I'm sure you've heard this. I've actually had people contact me. I need a website. I need this. I need that.
Mm-hmm.
And I will always ask them, do you have a social media team? What are your plans for
Right.
driving traffic? Oh,
Right.
I don't like social media. I won't work with them.
Right.
And they'll say, well, why not? Because I would build you a beautiful boat anchor. It's not
Mm-hmm.
going anywhere. I'm not doing that to me
Yep.
or you.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask you too, I had a couple of questions, I lost it. How do you evaluate if a business expert is ready for national media versus
Well,
starting with podcasts like this one?
yeah, that. And then also, making sure that they know what they want, not having any presence at all. Like, as much as you just said, you don't want to make an anchor. If they don't have a website or social media or a landing page, if I'm going to call and represent you to somebody, the first thing they're going to do after they hear from me is check you out on their own. And if they can't find anything, then we're just
Absolutely.
head in the water, right?
That is so true. Listen,
So,
we talked about AI. I use perplexity.ai.
mhm,
Do a deep dive because, I get so many requests and almost always somebody sends me a one sheet. The one sheet is pretty. It's a little bit informative, but it's also
mhm.
very biased. You're
Yes,
telling me what you want me to know, not what I need to know.
right.
So I typically just throw those in the trash. But I
Right,
go to
and
Perplexity.
you click around and you see what else is on.
Right. I go to Perplexity, and if there
Mhm,
is not a lot of information already there where I can go listen to you, watch you, read you, I'm
mhm.
out. You're not coming on my show.
And then obviously it's a little catch-22. People come to me to help get that, but my very first step is you don't have a LinkedIn, you don't have a website, you need those
Right.
things.
Right. That's exactly right. And you've got to have that social proof
Yeah.
because people honestly, and my friend Ben Gay the third has always said this, people need to know you, like you, and trust you.
Right.
And having a book, but having the backing behind it with your social media outreach
Mhm.
is know you, like you, and trust you.
Right. And be Googleable and make sure what we
Mm,
find is good.
that's exactly right. There's that too. So, looking ahead, Tess, what is one PR trend or tool, in your opinion, that every aspiring thought leader needs on their radar right now, today, not yesterday, today?
I mean, I don't know if it's a PR tool. They do need the social media out there, and they
Yeah,
need to be able to write. Um, and because writing and speaking is how they're going to be found. So whether it's without help trying to submit articles or posting on LinkedIn, you can do that. On your own. All of those things. It's really about making sure you can do that.
one thing that I've learned over the years is people don't necessarily talk the way they speak.
Uh
I do because I don't have any filters. So,
huh.
yeah, it works for me. But I have found that because and years ago, remember everybody had to have that elevator pitch. They had to do this, they had to do
Right.
that.
Right.
That's all changed. All of that, I hope, is gone.
No, it's still there.
Is it? That's too bad.
Yeah, your unique selling proposition is just different words.
Yeah, yeah, I don't care for that, but
Yeah.
if you start tracking people and you go, "Okay, they've been doing this, who are they?
Right.
Who are they really? What are they actually talking about?"
Yeah.
If your social media is if you've got a bunch of old social media out there, you wanna clean that out
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's not who you are now.
True. True.
So and a lot of people say, "Well, I've been doing this a long time." Yeah, I know. Clean it out. You know? You're no longer doing that stuff. Get rid
Right.
of
Right.
it. So
Who are you now?
exactly, and again, what do you bring to the table?
And nice with you, you deep dive so we can get to that past and how we got to the now. But most people just want to know the now and the what's next.
That's too bad.
Mm-hmm.
That is really too bad. So when you're talking with new clients, how do they find you?
A lot of word of mouth, a lot of that network of people I've been mentioning,
Referrals. Yeah.
referrals, Google. I'm very Googleable.
That's a
And
new word.
I know, right?
Googleable.
And there are other Tess Woodses out there, believe it or not, and one is in PR and one is an author.
I know. I came across her too. It's like, oh, and she's from the UK, isn't she?
Australia.
Ah, okay.
And then the PR, the other Tess Woods who's in PR is also in Boston. A little
Oh,
bit younger than me, but I think she's doing okay with the name.
well, have you been around for a long time?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
so what else do you want our audience to know? I don't want to keep hammering you with questions.
Oh, I just, if they have something that is worthy of sharing, then they're probably right if they think that. And whether that means they should put it in a book or a white paper or even just hire a publicist to help get the word out. It doesn't have to be in book form. You know,
Right.
to share your wisdom with others is a wonderful thing.
It really is. And it's legacy. Once you've
Yes,
got that book
absolutely.
out there and people
Mhm.
are, they either have it in their hand or it's on the airplane with them,
Yeah.
they've got it, they've read it, they're going to keep reading it. That's a legacy.
Yes. And even if, maybe someone reads your 300-page book and disagrees with some of it, you've got them thinking.
You do. And you know what I find with books, because I do go back to so many of
Mhm.
them often. And I know we all do this. We'll open up a page and I will just pick up a book and let it open to where it wants to go.
Mhm.
And then I'm like, oh, I don't remember seeing that. Well, that makes sense. Or what the heck?
Right,
But you
right.
get to have these conversations.
Yep. Yep.
Interesting. Okay. So tell me what's going on with your practice now.
Um, it's a struggling economy right now, but everything seems to be putting along. Thought leadership, everyone still needs it. It's not about necessarily competing for the front page of the paper, but to make sure that your audience is hearing you, whether that again, the niche is all I keep saying, whether it's through a podcast like yours or a guest author space on Fast Company or Harvard Business Review. All of those things are important for the people out there, and whether it's in a book form or not, we need to hear from you, and so does the public.
We do. And you know what I constantly am preaching about is consistency.
Yeah.
Sheer consistency. You don't need to get out there and blow your own horn.
No.
If you're doing your outreach properly, other people are going to do it for you. They're going to
Right.
refer you, but you need to be consistent. And honestly, that's
Right.
why this thing is 18 years old.
Right. Well, and that's one of the reasons too that that I've been doing this since 2013, 13 years old. But honestly, if we do it right, then the phone starts to ring for you instead of us just doing the calling.
It does. So
And
what
that
are
works for you and I as well. If we do a good
right.
job, people find us.
We do. And you find me every week.
Right.
Every single week. In fact, you're gonna think I'm a lunatic, but Mondays I go, "Anything from Tess? Anything from CJ?" What the heck?
Oh, that's wonderful. We've got some new things coming. Don't you worry.
Yeah, they don't love me anymore. So but I love that you and I connected all those years ago, and I'm
Yes.
trying to remember how it happened. I'm pretty
I
sure
probably just pitched you an author.
well, you landed a book on my doorstep.
Probably.
No, you did. I'm
Oh.
telling you did. I went to my post office box, and here's this book. No note, no nothing. It's just this book. I went, "What? What?" And I'm looking over my shoulder going, "What? Where did this come from?" And it was an author that I read the book. I loved the book, and I called you,
Mhm.
and I said, "Can I speak with Tess?" And you said, "This is Tess." I said, "Hey, this is Denise Griffitts. We've been waiting for you." I said, "What?" So, okay, I was targeted. That's
Yes,
good
you
to
were.
know.
And properly so, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, but, I read that book and went, "Okay, this is great," and that was really the date that I decided I was going to be an author's podcaster, as
Yeah, no,
best as I could be.
and it's worked out for both of us
It has,
and
I get
many others
books.
too.
Yeah, I get
I don't
books.
hold the monopoly on this space.
No, well, but you were the very beginning of it, and I'm so grateful for that, but
Oh, thank you.
whoever is listening to us right now, if y I'm sure you have questions that you asked all the time. Can
Mhm.
you share some of those really kind of general questions that you hear all the time that maybe you can answer right now?
Oh, that's a tough one. What are the questions I hear all the time? Hmm. I don't know. One thing is I think people think that when they, hire a publicist, that they think that they already have to be somebody. And you don't have to be a household name by any means.
Mm.
And I do much better
Sorry.
without the household names. I want you to find your people and your avenues and your target audience. Um, as long as you've got the right tools in place, like that LinkedIn and the website, we can start to move your needle further. But I think a lot of people too, when they hire a publicist, and this is just a marketing tool publicists use, is they brag about the big names that they've worked with. But guess what? I'm not going to go to you because I'm intimidated by them. I'm not that person. So I like to put out names that you may not have heard of, but that were very successful in their own right. Um, so that people can see it's not just about, you know, Martha Stewart or whomever. Um,
Right.
uh, you know, Jack Bogle I worked with. These are big names. So, and I know you're not Jack Bogle. You don't have the Vanguard funds and what have you, but you do have something worth saying. And
Well,
Jack
and
started somewhere too.
that's exactly right. We all do. And
Mhm.
so many of the authors that I've interviewed, nobody had ever heard of them
Right.
really. I
Right.
certainly had. But once I got on the conversation with them, I was fascinated.
Right.
And
Most are worthy.
yeah, they're great. And
Mhm.
I always try to call my guests right after the show and say, okay, how did we do? Did I sound
Mhm.
insane? You always say no. So thank you. I appreciate that. But I've had so many people say, "Oh my god, Denise, I felt like I rambled, like I was talking to me."
Yes, yes, I'm feeling like that right now.
No, and I'm gonna tell you right now, if I know my audience, it's a
Mhm.
huge audience, it's
Mhm.
global, and if I'm not interrupting you, if I'm not asking questions, you're not rambling, I'm in charge of the microphone.
Okay,
If
okay.
I'm fascinated, so is my
I
audience.
hope so.
Oh, trust me on this. So, okay, so one more I think I've got one more question for you. Before we wrap up, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you think authors, entrepreneurs, speakers, consultants, experts, anybody should understand about sharing their ideas and building visibility, whether it's a book, whether it's a podcast? What should they know?
Well, I mean, I that they should share their ideas, but be careful sometimes with who you share it with. Make sure it's the right fit for you. If you wanna get your ideas out there, make sure it's someone who specializes in your space. I know there's many PR people out there and we keep talking about niches, but there's others who will just say yes to anything and not they shouldn't necessarily. Um, so to just make sure that you're surrounding yourself by the right people, and whether that means doing reference checks or or just listening to your gut, um, to make sure. I mean, what you have is most likely worthy, but to trust your gut with the people you surround yourself with, and make sure that you have, you know, a handful of experts who can do the things that you don't know how to do.
Like what?
Like,
Social
yeah,
media
yeah, like
or
social media
right,
or media placement or
right.
podcast hosting. If I have a client who wants to start a podcast, I would say, "Well, let's talk to Denise before you do it. She'll give you, the good, the bad, and the ugly behind it." That kind of thing. So to just make sure that you're with the right people, and between, folks like you and I and all the networks we have, everyone should be so lucky to have such a good network.
I agree with you, and listen, I'm a nerd in stilettos. I
Yes, I love that.
I dream in HTML. No joke. One time, I was literally that moment just before you wake up, and you
Mhm.
can remember that dream just before you wake
Yes, yes.
and I was building a block. It was just a square in
Okay.
HTML, and I knew I was waking up, but I couldn't figure out why I had divided this thing, and I was padding one side a lot. It was really out of whack, and I was puzzling, what am I doing with this block? What's going on? Turns out I was getting ready to roll out of bed and hit my head on the table, and my HTML brain was saying, "Wake up. You're about to hurt yourself." So so that's embarrassing,
Oh,
but
that's okay.
yeah. But listen, before I let you go, final thoughts. What do you want to share with people? What would you like them to know about you?
Oh, if you don't know, if you have questions, reach out, You don't have to have it all figured out.
We
We'll
don't.
work together. Nope.
And that's brilliant. And what I started to say is because I am a nerd in stilettos, I like
Mhm.
to think I know everything.
Yeah.
Don't. not even close.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
I have,
I if you know what you don't know, you're ahead of the game.
that's right. So you always need to build a bigger, better
Yep.
team. You can't do it all yourself is what we're both saying
Absolutely.
there.
What is that? Jack of all trades, expert of none? Yeah.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that, or
Something like
idiot,
that.
IDIOT, idiot. I can spell that one. Well, Tess, before I let you go, tell people where they can find you and how they can work with you.
Sure. They can find me on LinkedIn at Tess Woods. They can find me at TessWoodsPR.com. They can find me at Tess@TessWoodsPR.com. All of those things. I'm very, very Googleable, and I'd love to hear from anybody.
You know I'm gonna be saying that word all day long, testing it to
I
see
did
if
not
I
make
can.
that word. That's a real word, Denise. We got to look that up.
I don't believe it. I'm going to probably bite multiple times trying to say Googleable. See, I can't do it. I just can't. You just ruined my day. So anyway.
You'll get it. You can practice when we hang up.
Oh, geez, my cat's gonna look at me like, "What?" You know? Anyway, thank you, Tess, for being on the show. You and I have been friends and colleagues of a
Yeah.
sort for so very long,
Thank you for
and,
breaking me out of my comfort zone.
oh, it's my job, you know? But just thank you for all that you do for my podcast and just, for being a friend and a colleague. I really
Oh, it goes
appreciate
both
you.
ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, listen, everybody, my guest today on Your Partner in Success Radio, Tess Woods, she and I connected sometime after I launched Your Partner in Success Radio in 2008. And I don't have the exact date anymore. It was a long time ago. But since then, through her incredible referrals of authors and thought leaders, she has been one of the key reasons this show became known as the go-to podcast for nonfiction experts. Tess is a marketing MBA. She's the founder of Tess Woods PR, and she's an entrepreneurial leader with 25 years or more in media strategy, branding, and thought leadership campaigns that have landed clients in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, CNBC, and Harvard Business Review. So be sure to connect with Tess at TessWoodsPR.com. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us today on Your Partner in Success Radio. And until next time, I am Denise Griffitts, and I will see you every single week. Tess, thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.